Stop building in the dark. On Insibook today, we're turning Ries's The Lean Startup into a rapid, real-world playbook to ship faster and waste less. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to turn guesses into data with the Build, Measure, Learn loop, launch a scrappy MVP in days, not months, and use validated learning to decide whether to pivot or persevere. We'll walk through innovation accounting, simple experiments that reveal what customers actually want, and the 3 engines of growth, sticky, viral, and paid, so you know exactly how to scale on purpose. If you're tired of perfect plans that never ship, don't skip. By the end, you'll have a lean toolkit to test ideas, find traction, and build something people can't ignore. Ready to stop guessing and start learning? Let's dive in. Imagine for a moment the romantic image of a startup, a lone genius in a garage, struck by a brilliant vision, who toils in secret for months or even years, before finally unveiling a perfect, revolutionary product to a world that instantly embraces it. It's a powerful story, one we've been told again and again, but it is a myth, and a dangerous one at that. The landscape of modern business is littered with the wreckage of companies that followed this script, companies that built incredible technology, executed flawless business plans, and still failed. They failed because they discovered, far too late, that they had built something nobody wanted. There must be a better way, a more rigorous, scientific approach to creating new things under conditions of extreme uncertainty. This is the foundation of a new kind of management, one designed not for the predictable world of a large corporation, but for the chaotic, volatile environment of a startup. A startup is not just a newly formed company. It is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. This definition is intentionally broad. It applies not only to a 2-person team in a garage, but also to a new division within a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit trying to find a new way to serve its community, or even a government agency attempting to launch a new initiative. The one thing they all have in common is that their vision is unproven. They are operating on a series of hypotheses about who their customer is, what that customer values, and how the business will grow. The fundamental purpose of a startup is not to execute a pre-written plan or to build a product, but to learn. Specifically, it is to learn as quickly as possible how to build a sustainable business around its vision. This process of discovery is not about luck or intuition alone. It can and must be managed. The unit of progress for a startup is not features shipped or milestones met, but validated learning. Validated learning is the rigorous process of demonstrating empirically that a team has discovered valuable truths about a startup's present and future business prospects. It is more concrete, more accurate, and faster than traditional market forecasting or business planning. It is the core of this methodology. Think of driving a car. You don't simply point the car in the general direction of your destination, put a brick on the accelerator, and hope for the best. That would be absurd. Instead, you keep your hands on the steering wheel, making constant minor adjustments based on the feedback you receive from your eyes, the curve of the road, the position of other cars, the changing traffic lights. A startup must operate in the same way. The grand vision is the destination, but the path to get there is unknown. The steering wheel is the mechanism for making adjustments, and validated learning is the feedback that tells you when and how to turn. The goal is to build a vehicle that can navigate this journey efficiently. That vehicle is powered by a simple but powerful feedback loop: build, measure, learn. This feedback loop is the engine of the startup. The goal is to accelerate through this loop as quickly as possible. The process begins with an idea, a hypothesis about what might create value for customers. Instead of spending months building a full-featured product based on this idea, the first step is to build a minimum viable product, or MVP. The MVP is not a synonym for a low-quality or buggy product. It is the version of a new product that allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least amount of effort. It is an experiment designed to test the most fundamental assumptions in the business model, what are often called the leap of faith assumptions. These are the riskiest elements of the plan, the beliefs that, if wrong, will cause the entire venture to fail. Consider the story of Zappos, the online shoe retailer. Their leap of faith assumption wasn't about technology or logistics. It was a simple, crucial question. Would customers be willing to buy shoes online without trying them on first? Instead of building a massive e-commerce website and investing in warehouses full of inventory, the founder, Nick Swinmurn, ran a simple experiment. He went to local shoe stores, took pictures of their shoes, and posted them online. When a customer placed an order, he would go back to the store, buy the shoes at full retail price, and ship them himself. He lost money on every sale, but he gained something far more valuable: validated learning. He proved that his core assumption was correct. This was a classic concierge MVP. It involved manually doing the work that would eventually be automated, providing a high-touch service to the first customers to learn what they truly valued. Another powerful example is Dropbox. Their leap of faith assumption was technical. Could they build a file syncing product that just worked seamlessly across different operating systems? And would customers even want such a thing? The technical challenge was immense. Building a full working prototype would have taken many months. Instead of building the product, they built an MVP to test the market demand. Their MVP was a simple 3-minute video. The video demonstrated the intended functionality of Dropbox, showing a user effortlessly dragging files into a folder and having them appear magically on other devices. They posted this video to a community of early adopters online. The response was overwhelming. Their beta sign-up list exploded from 5,000 to 75,000 people overnight. They had validated the market need without writing a single line of the final product's code. The MVP is not the product. It is the beginning of a learning process. Whether it's a video, a single feature application, or a manual service, its purpose is to start the feedback loop. Once you have built an MVP and released it to customers, you enter the measure phase of the loop. This is where many startups go wrong. They become fixated on vanity metrics, numbers that look impressive on the surface but don't tell you anything meaningful about the health of the business. These are metrics like total registered users, cumulative downloads, or raw page views. They always go up and to the right, which feels good, but they can easily hide a lack of real engagement. A startup might proudly announce it has 1 million users, but if none of them are active, the number is meaningless. Instead of vanity metrics, a startup must focus on actionable metrics. These are metrics that demonstrate a clear cause and effect relationship between actions the team takes and the outcomes it sees. To measure progress effectively, a new kind of accounting is needed: innovation accounting. It works in 3 steps. First, you use an MVP to establish a baseline of real data on where the company is right now. You measure key metrics like conversion rates, the percentage of users who take a desired action, customer lifetime value, and churn rate. Second, you attempt to tune the engine. You make specific changes to the product, marketing, or operations, all designed to move the baseline metrics closer to the ideal state you need for a sustainable business. For example, you might run an A/B split test, showing one version of a feature to one group of users and a different version to another to see which one improves engagement. This is scientific experimentation applied to business. Third, after a series of these optimization experiments, you reach a moment of truth. If your efforts are genuinely moving the metrics forward and you are making progress toward a sustainable business model, you persevere. If, despite your best efforts, the metrics are not improving and the data shows your core strategy is flawed, you must pivot. A powerful tool for actionable measurement is cohort analysis. Instead of looking at cumulative totals, you look at the behavior of specific groups of customers over time. For example, you might track the cohort of all users who signed up in January and compare their engagement levels over the next 6 months to the cohort of users who signed up in February. If the product improvements you made in late January resulted in the February cohort being more engaged and retaining at a higher rate, that is validated learning. You have evidence that your work is having a positive impact. This granular view prevents you from being misled by top-line growth that might be masking a leaky bucket problem, where you are acquiring new users as fast as old ones are leaving. Actionable metrics give you the unvarnished truth about whether you are actually learning and making progress. This brings us to the learn phase, which is arguably the most difficult. Learning involves confronting the often brutal facts revealed by your measurements. After running a series of experiments and analyzing the actionable metrics, you must decide whether to pivot or persevere. To persevere is to continue down the current path, doubling down on the strategy that is proving to be effective. A pivot, however, is a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, strategy, or engine of growth. It is not a failure or a sign of chaos. It is a courageous recognition that the initial strategy was flawed, and it represents an opportunity to apply everything you've learned to a new, more promising direction. A startup that doesn't have the institutional capacity to pivot is like a car with a steering wheel that is locked in place. It can only go straight, and if a wall appears in front of it, it is doomed. Pivots come in many forms. A zoom-in pivot takes what was previously considered a single feature of a larger product and turns it into the entire product. Conversely, a zoom-out pivot is when a single feature is insufficient and the product needs to be expanded to become something much larger. A customer segment pivot keeps the product the same but changes the target audience, recognizing that the product solves a real problem but for a different group of people than originally anticipated. An engine of growth pivot involves changing the strategy for acquiring customers, perhaps shifting from a viral model to a paid acquisition model. The key is that a pivot is not a random guess. It is a new strategic hypothesis that, like the original one, requires its own MVP and its own journey through the build, measure, learn feedback loop. The accumulated learning from previous loops is not discarded. It becomes the foundation upon which the new strategy is built. The ability to make these difficult, data-driven decisions is what separates successful startups from the walking dead, those that continue to operate and spend money but are not making any real progress toward a sustainable business. As a startup begins to find success and achieve product-market fit, the challenge shifts from learning what to build to learning how to grow. The next phase is about accelerating the engine. One of the most counterintuitive principles for acceleration comes from the world of lean manufacturing, the power of small batches. In a traditional factory, it feels more efficient to produce large quantities of items at each stage, to stamp out 1,000 car doors, then paint 1,000 car doors, then attach 1,000 car doors. But this creates massive amounts of work-in-progress inventory and delays the discovery of errors. If the stamping machine was misaligned, you've just produced 1,000 defective doors before anyone finds out. Working in small batches, stamping, painting, and attaching one door at a time allows you to find and fix problems almost immediately. In the world of software and product development, the batch is the work that moves from one stage, like design, to the next, like engineering or deployment. Startups that work in large batches spend months designing, then months building, then months testing, only to launch a product full of features that customers don't want. This is the ultimate form of waste. By working in small batches and practicing continuous deployment, releasing new code and features to customers frequently, sometimes multiple times a day, a startup can dramatically shorten its build, measure, learn feedback loop. Every small change is an experiment. You can quickly see its impact on user behavior, learn from it, and decide what to do next. This requires a different kind of infrastructure and a different kind of culture, one that values speed and learning over perfection and predictability. To channel this accelerated learning into sustainable growth, a startup must understand its engine of growth. Sustainable growth doesn't come from one-off publicity stunts or expensive Super Bowl ads. It comes from systems where the actions of past customers drive the acquisition of new customers. There are 3 primary engines of growth. A startup should typically focus its energy on optimizing just one at a time. The first is the sticky engine of growth. This engine is all about customer retention. The goal is to make the product so valuable and engaging that customers stick around for a long time. Growth comes from acquiring new customers at a rate that is faster than the rate at which old customers leave, the churn rate. For businesses with a sticky engine, the key metrics are churn rate and customer lifetime value. Success depends on building deep, long-term relationships with users. The second is the viral engine of growth. Here, growth is an inherent consequence of customers using the product. Think of a product like Hotmail, which automatically appended a link to its service at the bottom of every email sent, or a social network where the experience is better the more of your friends who join. The speed of viral growth is determined by a single number, the viral coefficient. This coefficient measures how many new customers, on average, each existing customer brings in. If the viral coefficient is 0.5, it means that every 2 customers will bring in one new one, and the growth will eventually fizzle out. But if the viral coefficient is greater than 1.0, the product will experience explosive, exponential growth as each new wave of users brings in an even larger one. The third is the paid engine of growth. This engine is more straightforward. You pay money to acquire customers. This could be through search engine marketing, social media ads, or sales commissions. The engine is sustainable as long as the cost to acquire a customer, CPA, is less than the revenue that customer generates over their lifetime, LTV. If you can spend $50 to acquire a customer who will generate $100 in profit for you, you have a working paid engine of growth. The company can then reinvest the profits from each customer into acquiring more customers, creating a compounding growth loop. The key is to measure both CPA and LTV rigorously and to optimize both sides of the equation, either by finding cheaper acquisition channels or by increasing the value derived from each customer. Building an organization capable of this kind of rapid iteration, measurement, and adaptation requires a specific kind of culture. It's a culture that doesn't punish failure, but instead treats it as a learning opportunity. When problems arise, a server crashes, a feature has a bug, a marketing campaign fails, the instinct in a traditional organization is often to find someone to blame. This creates a culture of fear, where people hide mistakes rather than exposing them. A lean organization uses a technique called the 5 whys to get to the root cause of a problem. When an issue occurs, you don't stop at the surface-level symptom. You ask why 5 times to dig deeper. For example, a machine on an assembly line stops. Why? Because a fuse blew. Why? Because the circuit was overloaded. Why? Because a bearing wasn't properly lubricated. Why? Because the lubrication pump wasn't working. Why? Because the pump's shaft was worn out from unfiltered metal shavings. The root cause isn't a blown fuse. It's the lack of a filter on the pump. The 5 whys process transforms a technical problem into a human one about process and training, and it leads to more robust, systemic solutions rather than quick fixes. This creates an environment of psychological safety where problems can be solved collaboratively without fear of reprisal. Ultimately, this entire methodology is about managing the immense risk inherent in innovation. It provides a framework for turning a bold vision into a sustainable business by systematically de-risking the journey. It requires letting go of the old model of management, which was built for a world of certainty and efficiency, and embracing a new one built for learning and discovery. It means having the humility to admit that our initial ideas are just hypotheses, the discipline to test them with real customers, and the courage to pivot when the evidence tells us we are wrong. This is not a magic formula for success, but it is a powerful antidote to the single biggest source of waste in our economy: the practice of building things that nobody wants. By embracing a continuous cycle of building, measuring, and learning, we can unlock the potential of entrepreneurs everywhere to create the future, not by following a map, but by steering with science.